Welcome to the Mayor's Virtual Cabinet in the Community. Thank you so much for bearing with us. There's always technical challenges, but it is what it is, and we always make it through. So we wanted to make sure that we finish off the year very strong indeed. And so it is with that Council District 6, which is Councilman Kashmann's district, as well as Mayor Hancock, of course, who's been doing this since he began really being the mayor. This is one of his tremendous traditions. And this is during a time where there is much to celebrate and much to be thankful for this year. But I will tell you, there are a lot of people who are in need. And so there will be some videos, some stories tonight that will move you, hopefully, to give to those who are less fortunate. So before we get into that, though, allow me to provide some housekeeping information for your maximum participation tonight, because we want to be respectful of your time, and we also want to make sure that every constituent who is tuning in from Councilman Kashmann's district is really getting the biggest bang for their buck, so we speak. So we have a Spanish translator for tonight, and that is going to be for the CIC folks who are watching on Zoom. Our Spanish-speaking translator is Valentina, and momentarily she will be able to translate what I am saying, and she will introduce herself as well. We also want to make sure that if you need translation services, you can find those services at the bottom of your Zoom screen. Now you're saying, well, Glo, I don't see that. It's coming up, hold tight, it's going to be turned on, but those services will be on Zoom. They'll also be on the mayor's Facebook page and on the City of Denver's Facebook page as well. Now, access to the translator will be made available as soon as I'm done, which will occur, as I said, momentarily. To access those translations, you will see, just go ahead and click at the bottom of your Zoom screen. You will see there, you turn that on, click on that globe. It will then say, what translation do you need? And Spanish should be one of the options. You click on that and you are good to go. So once you do that, you will be in for the remaining of the evening. And now let me go ahead and introduce Valentina, who can share with you what I have said thus far in Spanish. Take it away, Valentina.
Thank you very much, Chloe. Hola, buenas noches a todos, a todas y a todos. Mi nombre es Valentina y estoy aquí para ofrecerles la interpretación en español de la sesión de gabinete en la comunidad virtual para el distrito del Consejo número 6. Esta noche estamos con el concejal Kashmann. Si ustedes necesitan servicios de interpretación, pueden encontrarlos en la página de Facebook del alcalde o en la página de Facebook de la ciudad de Denver. Si se encuentran en Zoom para esta reunión, pueden encontrar el canal del idioma de español haciendo clic en el botón que parece un globo terráqueo en la parte inferior de su pantalla en cuanto termine de dar estas instrucciones. Muchas gracias. Thank you, Chloe.
You are very welcome. Thank you, Valentina. All of the CICs this year have been virtual, and that's to ensure that every constituent who attends has the same amount of access as all the previous attendees. And this tonight will be the last of 2021. So here's something else I want to tell you. If you need American Sign Language or access to that, you can access that service via the mayor's Facebook page or on Channel 8. If you need the service of automatic speech recognition, ASR, just go to the bottom of your Zoom screen and you will see the letters ASR there. That's where you can turn on the auto speech recognition. And so to make sure that you do that. If you're wondering, well, you know, this has been a tradition. Has it always been virtual? It has not. When the mayor first began these, they were all in person. All the department heads, everyone would converge in an area specified for that council district, and they would get a chance to present and have the constituents who attended ask questions. But because of COVID, we have had to resort to virtual. And as a result, we want to make sure that the people who had access back in December of last year are the same ones who are having access in December of this year, to make sure everybody has equal access to the department heads, to city influencers, as well as to those we've elected to office. So with that, I want to encourage participants to drop your questions in the Q&A early for any of tonight's speakers. And once each speaker concludes their presentation, I will then ask questions that have come in via the chat, via Facebook, via Q&A, depending on which platform you are watching on. And again, don't worry if you're not on Zoom. We have individuals who are with the councilman's office, as well as with department heads, whether it is the chief of police, whether it is Department of transportation, multiple department heads and their subject matter experts who will pull the questions that you post from a variety of platforms over to where they can be seen by me and asked of the individuals you want asked. If I don't get to all the questions tonight, well, we will have those same subject matter experts right in the chat, the Zoom, the Q&A, and they will be able to answer on your behalf, even if this particular program concludes. So with that, I want to make sure that you know that all questions are welcome here. We definitely respect one another, but we certainly do not shy away from tough questions. Before I introduce Mayor Hancock, there will be a video following a welcome from Councilman Kashmann. And this moving declaration will highlight the importance of giving to those who are in need during this time of the year and really beyond, but especially to international refugees who are new to our shores this year. So with that, I thank you for indulging me to make sure that you have maximum participation. And Mayor Hancock, it is your turn. So it gives me pleasure to welcome Mayor Hancock to the screen.
Thank you, Glo, and as always, thank you for hosting our event tonight. I want to thank everyone out there for joining us here for the final Cabinet Community in 2021 in District 6, represented by Councilman Paul Kashmann. We're excited about today. You're going to hear a lot of conversations, or at least presentations from key departments that you requested. A lot of this also comes from your calls, the 311, where we kind of gauge some of your interests and concerns in the community. And we're going to try to answer some of your key questions today. So I want to thank all of our panelists for being here tonight as well. We've got a plethora of city agencies listening in, ready to answer questions. Even if they don't present tonight, they're going to be prepared to answer some of your questions if called upon. Listen, I know we had some technical difficulties in getting started, so we're a little bit behind schedule. So I'm going to be very brief. As we start this Cabinet Community, obviously top of mind, of course, is our continued efforts to push back the spread and the impact of COVID-19. Tonight, you're going to hear from our illustrious Administrator of Public Health, Bob McDonald, who's just done a tremendous job in studying the data and making sure that we know how to best respond in the midst of this pandemic and how we're managing it. Something that I can tell you that no metro area in this country or in the world have ever imagined that we would have to address in our lifetime. But here we are. And for all the things that have gone on, I can tell you that we as a city in our metro area have done quite well in managing it, but we've had some very tough decisions to make. In fact, just recently, as hospital capacity in Denver and throughout the metro area became dangerously low, we had to make some very tough decisions. In fact, we joined, as you already know, with our regional neighbors last week in announcing that we were going to reinstate our mask mandate in our public buildings. And the order includes a couple things. One, I like to call it the mask or masks mandate, where public organizations or facilities will make a decision on whether or not everyone will be required to wear a mask, or they will check and require vaccination passport or check as they walk through the door. We hope that this will help us to stem the spread of the virus and also give us back some capacity within our hospitals. When we don't have capacity in our hospitals, it's one of our top metrics that we pay attention to. It means that people who are not even dealing with COVID-related illnesses, maybe life-threatening situations, may not have the ability to be serviced properly when needed. So this is an important decision we had to make in order to create some opportunity for all of us to keep all of us safe and healthy in the continued spread of this pandemic going forward. This is a constant reminder in the pandemic, and I'm going to say these things, and I know you already know them. Please wear a mask when you are in public spaces. Do not hassle the shop owners or restaurant maitre d's when they ask you to wear a mask. Please do so, and please continue to social distance. And if you haven't been vaccinated, I can't plead with you more to get vaccinated. And if you have yet to receive your booster, haven't been vaccinated at least 6 months ago, please continue to do so. This is a current challenge. It doesn't distract us from all the other work that we have to do in terms of keeping the city safe, taking care of our roads and bridges, and working on our continued challenges around homelessness and economic recovery. We're going to continue to do those things. And maybe tonight you have some questions concerning some of those things. But with that, I'm going to turn it over to my man and your city council representative, the illustrious representative, Councilman Paul Kashmann. Councilman, thank you for having us.
Well, thank you, Mayor. And good evening, District 6. Thanks to everyone for being with us tonight. It's truly a great honor to serve as your councilman. I hope you all had a great Thanksgiving, and however you choose to celebrate, I wish you a very happy holiday season. The number one responsibility of government at any level is ensuring the safety of its residents. All of us in the city family are aware we must do more to bring down crime in Denver. While violent crime demands immediate attention, we must also address property crimes in our communities. You've asked for more police in your neighborhoods, more traffic enforcement as well. I'll continue to support DPD budget requests to get staffing levels back up to authorized strength and urge additional use of automated enforcement to supplement our hardworking officers. I'll continue to work with city agencies to create a sidewalk network that's in good repair, fully connected, and of a scope that welcomes and encourages individuals and families to walk more to get to our destinations. It's good for our health and good for our environment. And as we build more bike lanes, we must be sure they provide safe passage for cyclists. And while we're on the subject of bikes, my office has partnered with Denver Police to bring forward a new registration program you'll hear about in the new year that promises to reduce bicycle theft and help get recovered bikes back to their rightful owners. I'll support the implementation of lower speed limits where appropriate to encourage safer driving and new roadway engineering solutions to cause slower speeds on city streets, and appropriate enforcement to be sure our laws are followed. Tomorrow, I'll bring forth an ordinance change that will lower speeds on our neighborhood streets, those with no painted center line, from 25 miles per hour to 20. We simply must slow down. We know that the faster speeds cause more serious injuries when collisions occur. The reduction in speeds on neighborhood streets is but a small part of a comprehensive approach to traffic safety that Dottie is employing at Mayor Hancock's direction to begin to reduce fatal accidents on our streets to zero. I share your concern that those living on our streets be brought into dignified housing along with services, job training, mental health, drug treatment, etc., that will return those down on their luck to an independent lifestyle. While we work to make our shelter system more welcoming to diverse populations needing short-term residence, I've been a consistent voice insisting that more new housing be priced at a level affordable to lower and middle-income families. Changes to state law have made it easier to push in that direction. We need to be more aggressive. I want to thank Mayor Hancock for directing the Office of Human Rights and Community Partnerships to spearhead a study of what Denver can do to better engage residents in the policymaking process. This is an area I've been researching for almost 2 years, and I look forward to working with the staff at HRCP in this effort. If you're not receiving my email newsletter, please go to our website or contact my office to get signed up. We've added a new feature, Sustainable 6, that presents monthly ideas on how to better conserve resources, reduce, recycle, and reuse, and reduce our carbon footprint as a community. We hope you'll join us as a Sustainable Sixer. Finally, I'm working with Councilwoman Black in District 4 to our south on improvements to our tree preservation ordinance to better protect our urban tree canopy, as well as making changes to code to stop large commercial trucks from parking on neighborhood streets where they just don't belong. Well, right now, I'm pleased to introduce a presentation on an important community District 6 agency. When refugees arrive in the United States, simple tasks most of us take for granted, like getting the mail, grocery shopping, and using public transportation, can feel daunting and unnerving. The International Rescue Community, IRC, provides a range of services to help refugees rebuild their lives and integrate into our community. IRC staff spoke to IM Denver about their current efforts in assisting Afghan refugees, and shared how the public can help.
All of those things that we kind of take for granted in our daily life. Our clients typically need a lot of support from the community to understand and navigate. I'm Jennifer Wilson. I'm the Executive Director for the International Rescue Committee in Denver. So the International Rescue Committee helps people who have been displaced or have had their lives uprooted by conflict or disaster to find safety and recover and regain control of their future. So in the United States, we work with a lot of people who are rebuilding their lives here. Overseas, we're often responding at the point where people are displaced and fleeing or returning after having been displaced. We operate in more than 40 countries around the world, and we have 28 offices in the US right now. So the Denver office of the IRC was founded in 2016. We provide at the International Rescue Committee in Denver a whole range of services, so everything that you might need to restart your life. So we know that integration is a process that typically takes years, and we work with people for at least 5 years to help them attain that highest level of integration so they come to call Denver and Colorado home. We arrange housing, we welcome them at the airport, we help them get connected to services and supports, so things like Social Security, or near term, people need food assistance, they need some cash assistance, they usually need health coverage. We also help them get connected to English language learning supports, job training opportunities. We teach people how to use the bus. We help them understand where their local grocery store is, how to shop. We get kids enrolled in school. So a whole host of things. Here in the United States, we do a lot of work in the areas of safety, health, education, economic well-being, and power. Power being people's ability to realize their full rights. The work that we do internationally is really focused more on crisis and recovery and relief. When something happens, whether it's a man-made disaster or conflict or a natural disaster or a conflict, to help people find safety, it's very much focused on protection. And then for those who are displaced for longer periods of time, we often work in urban settings or in refugee camps to help ensure that people have as close to a normal life as is possible. So we're responding to the crisis with Afghans coming in from evacuations by coordinating with our community partners. So we have, I think, a very unique challenge right now because we are receiving a high volume of clients in a very short period of time. The biggest focus for us as that's happening is housing, right? So we're working with a lot of the landlords and property managers that we typically partner with, but then also with different groups, private citizens, people who have rental properties who are willing to open those up for Afghans to come. It's been really phenomenal to see our local community, and not just here in the Denver metro area, but all across the state, people stepping forward, including active duty military service members, veterans, and then others who came from Afghanistan or Iran or Pakistan and share some linguistic and cultural background and really want to ensure that they're extending their hand to welcome people. And we not only work with newcomers, we also work with those who are already here. So what we call the welcoming community, or sometimes people might refer to it as the mainstream community, we want to also support them. And while we do absolutely need donations still, volunteers are integral to our programs, whether they're family mentors or first friends, maybe they're employment mentors or higher education mentors, helping people really chart their path for their long-term goals. But we're really proud and happy to be here today and stronger than when we started, welcoming people into our community.
That is always so very special. I want to thank you to the IM Denver team. They do an awesome job. And quite frankly, really the whole International Rescue Committee, they helped with that as well. Also, thank you to Mayor Hancock and Councilman Kashmann, just because there is so much to unpack here. The mayor was really stressing the importance of, we're still in a pandemic. We're still trying to fight this virus. We're still trying to be smart about this. And so that message is going to continue to be reiterated. Now I want to bring someone up who can really drive that message home. Our next person and the first real presenter tonight. I mean, you know, you're going to see the mayor and Councilman Kashmann towards the end, and you can ask them all sorts of questions. But the executive director of the Denver Department of Public Health and Environment, that would be Bob McDonald. He is going to share the latest COVID numbers and the latest vaccine numbers, and as well as this new acronym that everybody is talking about, Omicron. Yes, that one. He will be followed then by Denver Police Chief Paul Pazin. But first, it is time for Mr. Bob McDonald. Bob.
Hey, good evening, everyone. Hopefully my screen pops up here with my face. My video has been a little quirky today, so it is on. Hopefully you'll see me here soon. I am going to go ahead and share a couple of slides. And while I'm pulling that up, maybe Glo, you could just give me a thumbs up that we're good to go here.
Yep,
but
I see your slides.
Very good. Let's jump right into the questions I know we're going to get about the Omicron variant. First of all, listen, this viruses mutate. So there's no reason to panic here. We're used to getting those flu shots every year, right? The reason we do that is because the flu virus mutates. And so we have to get a shot to adjust for how that mutation occurs. So it's not uncommon for viruses to mutate. It doesn't mean that it's more deadly. It certainly doesn't mean that current vaccines won't work. It could be more infectious, that's a possibility. But again, it doesn't mean that it's more harmful. It doesn't mean that the current controls that we use are not going to work on this variant. So I would just encourage you to stay tuned on what the CDC is saying, what the World Health Organization is saying. Be careful about those social media sites. There's so much disinformation there about vaccines not working and the Omicron variant's more infectious because look at all the cases that are occurring in the African continent. But in Africa, the vaccine rate's about 30 to 40%. And so we are going to see more cases there. It doesn't necessarily mean that this new variant is more infectious. And again, it certainly doesn't mean that it's more harmful or more deadly. So more information to come on that, but let's take a look at where we are currently. So with this is something that many of you might be familiar with. It's the epidemiological curve that shows the number of cases that we've had over the last 20 months or so. And you can see over on the far right, cases are still going up. You have to disregard that tail at the end there that usually dips down every day, and that's because of delayed reporting. Cases are still going up, but they're going up more slowly, so it looks like we might be approaching a plateau with this latest spike. You look at vaccination rates doing very well in Denver. Almost 90% of people in our communities have received at least one dose, doing a little bit better than the state overall and a little bit better than the US as a whole. So we're real proud of that. But if you have not gotten vaccinated, please get vaccinated. There are currently about 1,500 to 1,600 people in hospitals throughout the state who are not vaccinated. They thought they didn't need it. They thought they could rely on their immune system. They thought they were healthy enough. And unfortunately now they need to reach out for help because they're seriously ill or having difficulty breathing. So get vaccinated. And the vaccines, again, it's likely that they're going to be very effective with this most recent variant. So in spite of our vaccine rate, why do we have to do this now? The mayor touched on this earlier. While we don't have the number of cases that we had in December, this previous December, we don't have as many healthcare workers either. I noticed already that there was a question about standing up the convention center and setting up some external sites outside of hospitals as stand-up hospitals, if you will. The problem is not available space in hospitals. It's staffed beds. Again, we don't have as many cases, but we don't have as many healthcare workers either. So the way we can help out is to get vaccinated, not just with COVID-19, but please get your flu shot too. A lot of people forget about that and they wind up going to the hospital for help because of that respiratory virus. So here's where we are with current public health mandates. We have the city's vaccine mandate, which covers those categories there. We're just about at 100% with all city employees being vaccinated, making sure that those that we're serving are protected from our own workforce. We have a face covering mandate that we issued last week. That's to slow transmission. It's not to replace vaccines. Vaccines get us out of the pandemic. Face coverings just slow down transmission. So again, please be aware that when you go to regulated facilities, large venues and what have you, you may be asked for vaccine documentation or a face covering. So please be prepared for that. And then we also have a state mandate for very large facilities that they 500 or over that they also, anybody going to those venues has to show proof of vaccine in order to gain entry. Just a couple of reminders, one dose is not enough. Even if it's the J&J vaccine, if you've had your shot of J&J, you can go ahead and get the second shot if it's been at least 2 months from your J&J vaccine. If it's been at least 6 months or more from your 2-dose series of Pfizer or Moderna, you can go ahead and sign up to get that second dose, or I'm sorry, the booster shot now. So lots of places that can be done. And that's really what gets us out of the pandemic. And for more information, you can call 311. You can go to denvergov.org. We have a lot of information there. And I'll stay on in case there are any questions a little bit later. So with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Glo.
Thank you so much, Bob. Before you go, one question did come in, and it is about this rapid at-home test. Compare that to the COVID check testing. What is better? And this is coming in from Lisa Lamunian.
Yeah, rapid tests, there's a use for those, but rapid tests are best when a person is actually symptomatic. So you have to be careful with those because it can miss asymptomatic infections. The best tests are still those PCR tests, and they're not as dreadful as they were in the beginning, where you got those swabs way in the back of the throat or deep into the nasal cavity. It doesn't have to be that way anymore. PCR tests are better. There's a lot of providers that can do that. Rapid tests are good if you're experiencing symptoms. Always good to check it out, what's going on with those rapid tests.
Okay, that is definitely good to know. And of course, there are more questions. I'm glad you're hanging around, Bob, because I'm sure we'll be able to loop back around at the end of this. So thank you so much for that, Bob. Chief Payson, it is you on deck. Good evening.
Hello, thanks for having me. It's an honor to be here speaking to the residents of Council District 6. I do want to just echo the words that Councilman Kashmann spoke of. Essentially, everybody deserves to be safe in Denver, and we have to work collectively in order to accomplish that. We cannot tolerate violent crime. We cannot tolerate crime in our community, and we can't normalize it. So we have to do everything possible in a collaborative approach to address this. Now, unfortunately, 2021 continues to trend along the same lines that 2020 did, as far as increases in shootings, homicides, burglaries, auto thefts, and car break-ins. We have to work together to address that. And your question may be, what is the Denver Police Department doing about it? You may have heard we have 5 identified geographical hotspots. They account for 1.56% of the landmass in Denver. However, 26% of the homicides, 49% of the shootings. So utilizing an evidence-based program, an evidence-based approach, we are addressing these persistently violent locations and doing this in a collaborative way, not just enforcement, but there's also enhancements to the environment, such as lighting, for example, or working with the other city agencies. Dottie is a great partner in this, Office of Children's Affairs, Youth Violence Action Table. We also are working very closely with nonprofits and faith-based leaders in order to address these issues. What can you do to help us in this, right? We're talking a little bit about violent crime here. Property crime is just as impactful, and in some ways it's even more impactful when you're talking about somebody who is the victim of a burglary, for example, and that most sacred place, your home, place that you are supposed to feel safe when that is violated through a burglary or a vehicle being stolen. So how can you help us in this? You can help by joining Neighborhood Watch. This is a time-tested, it's been evaluated. This is a program that actually works. Engage neighborhoods, make stronger neighborhoods, and stronger neighborhoods make safe neighborhoods. So that's one way we'd ask you to help out with these strategies to address the issues that we just described, the persistently violent locations in our city. Help us with the property crimes, help us to free up officers so we can be available to address these issues. You know, one of the other areas that the councilman talked about was a partnership with Garage 529. We recognize that bike theft, larceny is an issue that is impacting our city, particularly when we're talking about sustainability and being able to utilize multimodal transportation. The councilman, as well as Council District 7, the two council districts work together with our department. We are launching a registration program that should be able to, one, hold the individuals accountable for these types of crimes that are being committed, and most importantly, able to return those bicycles. We have many challenges that we're dealing with on top of the increases in crime, and we have your district commander, Commander Rick Kyle, that will talk more specifically about a couple of the issues impacting Council District 6. Rick, could you join us?
Thank you, Chief. And I'd like to thank Mayor Hancock and Councilman Kashmann for the opportunity to speak tonight. As with the entire metro area and actually most of the country, we are in Police District 3 and Council District 6 seeing an overall increase in crime. And in Council District 6, the primary driver of that is vehicle crime. This is an issue that officers have been working very hard to address. We actually have a 20% increase in auto theft arrests since 2019 in District 3. One of the biggest challenges with auto theft we're seeing is that although we're making more arrests, the courts are currently not holding those arrested for auto theft with a lot of what we call PR bonds, personal recognizance bonds being issued. Those are basically promises to appear in court. We're actually dealing with one party in District 3 that has been arrested 6 times this year alone for auto theft. So that's a really huge challenge. The officers are doing a great job of finding these stolen cars with the actual drivers, the people who stole them, but they're actually not being held accountable. They're being released quickly, and it's sometimes years before they'll actually show up in court and actually have a trial for those charges. The good news we have is these increases in crime are really driven by the first half of the year. Kind of since the middle of the year on, we've kind of seen crime in District 3 and Council District 6 closer to normal baseline. So that's some encouragement there. And as the chief mentioned, the safest communities are those that are engaged and connected. And our Neighborhood Watch program are very fortunate in District 3 to have a very robust Neighborhood Watch program that helps facilitate that. So if anyone is interested in participating, please call District 3 at 720-913-1300. and ask to speak to your community resource officer for more information on that. Another huge area of complaint that we hear from residents of Council District 6 is street racing. And it's really a big challenge for the entire metro area as well. And I'd like to thank Chief Payson and Chief Thomas for their support in creating a task force comprised of citywide assets from the police department to address this. We've been running weekly operations to address this challenge and have had pretty good success. 148 citations issued this year and 27 arrests for street racing. And not only for those criminal charges, but we also have public nuisance laws that allow for seizure of the vehicle, even if the driver can't be identified if they're engaged in this dangerous street racing activity. And this year so far, 71 nuisance cases have moved forward with our public nuisance abatement unit, including one case from this past weekend at 11th and Broadway, where we were able to identify a vehicle with video evidence and move forward with a nuisance abatement case. So we're continue to work on that. I know it's a very frustrating issue for the community. It's very disturbing. It's dangerous activity, and we will continue working on that. Please continue to report these incidents. If it's an emergency, 911. If not, non-emergency number 720-913-2000. And another option for reporting is a state website, www.reportstreetracing.com. And again, we use these sources to figure out where this is happening and when it's happening so that we can be proactive with our resources to address the issue. So I'll leave it there. Again, thank you, and we appreciate you.
Glow, we can wrap it up and then answer some questions. I just want to share with the community here that our challenges are many. However, our resolve is strong. Working together is how we can address this. And as the mayor and councilman speak of, everybody in Denver deserves to be safe, and we have to work together to accomplish that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No, Chief, total agreement. Because I know that there are quite a few questions. I know people are asking about the citations, what the penalties are. Folks also want the information that Commander Kyle gave out. And they, we'll put that in the chat for them, all of those things. But you will be around through the end of this. So I just want to make sure that we get that. We will ask the questions for those who are in attendance. Please don't think that the questions will not get answered. It's just a matter of making sure that we are respectful of your time. So thank you so much, Chief. I appreciate that. And thanks to Commander Kyle, but you guys don't go far. How about that? Thanks so much. Next step for you this evening is Laura Aldrete. She is the Executive Director for Community Planning and Development, and she has got more to share with you. Good evening, Laura.
Good evening. I'm checking to see if you can see my screen presentation.
Yep, I see that.
Excellent. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. My name is Laura Aldrete. I am the Executive Director of Community Planning and Development. I also have with me Scott Robinson, who is a Senior Planner at CPD. And so if there's questions, he's on hand to help answer as well, and works in your neighborhoods. And just want to say thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to join us this evening. Tonight, I just want to discuss the launch of our Near Southeast Area Plan, which is specifically in your neighborhoods. That's just getting underway, and provide an update on our work to ensure Denver's workforce has access to homes priced for people to afford. It's another big initiative of ours that is citywide. In addition, we'll share some public resources about how you can track zoning code updates happening near you, and then leave time at the end for questions, and we'll let Flo handle that. And I'm just trying to make sure there you go. Make sure my slides forward. Okay, great. So just a quick note on our mission and how we're organized. From long-term citywide planning and to rezoning an individual lot, everything we do is guided by the community's voice, which is part of the mission that drives us in the work that we do. So let's just dive straight into it. This summer, we launched the Neighborhood Planning Initiative in the neighborhoods of Washington, Virginia Vale, Virginia Village, Indian Creek, Goldsmith, and University Hills North. If you live in one of these neighborhoods, you might have seen us out asking residents what they like or dislike about their neighborhood, what they want to see in the future. Over the next year and a half, we'll be working with you all and the residents of these neighborhoods to develop a long-term community vision that aligns with existing citywide goals around equity, mobility, and sustainability. The community vision will eventually be called the Near Southeast Area Plan, and will guide city decision-making in these neighborhoods for years to come. We encourage you to visit the website where you can read about what we've already heard from residents in these neighborhoods. And then you can also sign up to receive email updates about the project and find ways to participate in the work. So additionally, we've got citywide projects going on. And the projects listed, on this slide will all result in amendments to the Denver zoning code. So zoning codes are really a living documents that have to be periodically amended to stay current and relevant to today's issues. Each of these projects is based on recommendations from adopted city plans, like our Citywide Blueprint Denver, Land Use and Transportation Plan that was adopted in 2019, or neighborhood plans like the Near Southeast plan that we just discussed. Zoning code amendments like these projects help us take community recommendations and turn them into policy. We are currently working on 3 zoning code amendments, which are listed here. And I'll speak most explicitly in the next slide about the expanding housing affordability, which encourages construction of mixed income housing. The advancing equity and rezoning, which will work to refresh the rezoning process and criteria. It will focus on supporting Blueprint Denver's equity goals for more transparency and better public input. While this project will not rezone any projects, it will improve the process people and neighborhoods go through as rezonings are proposed in the future. And then lastly is our accessory dwelling units in Denver, which is looking at how to improve the design of ADUs and the placement of them on a parcel. It won't change where the city ADUs are or aren't allowed currently. It will look at how they're designed, as I mentioned, how they fit within the different types of neighborhoods and block patterns, and how updates to the zoning code may reduce barriers to creating ADUs. One of the comments we've heard from various community members over the last several years. This project is not rezoning any properties to allow ADUs. It's updating the regulations that apply to areas where ADUs are already allowed. This was a specific recommendation in Blueprint Denver that came from residents who noted that historical zoning regulations for ADUs just don't make sense in all the contexts and need to be re-examined. You may have also heard that about the residential infill project, which is another regulatory project recommended by Blueprint Denver. This project has been put on hold though, given these 3 projects are really meaty and we need to make sure we're taking time with the residents and moving through the expertise in our own staff to ensure we have the amendments correct. So the last piece I'll just dive into in terms of our projects is the expanding housing affordability, which is the project that has moved through has had the most amount of public comment and engagement to date of the 3 that I just listed. So, as you, I'm sure, are having conversations probably around the Thanksgiving table even, and hear it on the news, is that Denver needs more homes that are that the average person can afford. We all have family members who are looking for those affordable housing. That's what this project is all about, really, is ensuring that as new homes are built, so are new affordable homes. And so within the city, we have a number of initiatives working to support people with the lowest incomes. What we also need is housing for our workforce, teachers, firefighters, restaurant workers, people who make our city great places that we love, and people who are struggling to find affordable housing. So in October, we released a draft policy aimed at creating more affordable homes in Denver. And the proposal was the result of many months of work to analyze the financial feasibility, meeting with residents, identifying current and future housing needs, and studying comparable programs in other cities. If this is approved, which we anticipate taking through City Council later in 2022, this proposal will require all new residential buildings that have 8 or more units to make a portion of these units affordable for households making 60% of the average, 60 to 100% of the average Denver income. So just to break that down, that's about $50,000 to $83,000 a year for a 2-person household. And for comparison, a household currently needs to make about $100,000 a year to be able to afford an entry-level home in the Denver market. So there's a missing gap here that we're really trying to help fill for the workforce, and we've kind of identified some of these folks that we see and work with every day. The answer to affordable housing isn't simple, right? But it does include making sure that new housing developments include options that are attainable for people working a wide range of jobs And by including more affordable and market rate homes in the same developments, we can create a welcoming mixed income communities across the city. I will stop there. I know there's some questions that have been populating, but Glo, I'm going to have you guide me through those questions. I'll
Absolutely.
just say that here are some links to our websites, city websites, to get more information. And of course, I'm sure we'll be posting those as well for you to
Okay, good. Well, this one is coming in from one of the other platforms. I believe it's Facebook. The Expanding Housing Affordability document carefully lays out the need for housing and the parameters of the program. They're asking about the forecast of how well the program will meet the 20-year needs that are outlined.
Yeah, so that's an interesting question because we are working with the private sector, right, which is gauged on the markets. And so that is, those are some of the criteria, is looking at what are the predictions for where the market's going to move and how can we adjust to accommodate and try to keep up from an affordable housing standpoint within this range, specific to the expanding housing affordability component. But I do want to caution that, right, the market is based on global influences, national influences, what's happening locally, and so it's a little bit of a nimble engagement with the market.
Okay, you were correct in that there are more, but here's what we're going to do. You two will stay until the end. We're going to move on now and to our last presenter before we circle back to Mayor Hancock and Councilman Kashmann. Our last presenter is Jen Hillhouse with the Department of Transportation and Infrastructure. And I know she is going to be sharing some great information tonight dealing with transportation. Jen, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Glo. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay, wonderful. And are you able to see me?
I do see your slides.
Wonderful.
Yes,
when
yes.
you're in presenter mode, it's kind of different. I view.
I got you.
Well, good evening. I am Jen Hillhouse with the Department of Transportation and Infrastructure, and I'm joined by Ashley Grace, who is my colleague and works almost on a day-to-day in District 6. So she'll be able to help with any specific questions and things that come up. But we're excited to be speaking with you tonight, and thank you for taking time out of your evening. We wanted to kind of focus on two topics. One, managing traffic on our already crowded streets, and particularly with new development, some of what Laura just mentioned. And then also how we're addressing speeding on our neighborhood streets. These were some topics that came in from you that we knew that you wanted to focus on. So, starting with the Denver's Mobility Action Plan, this was a plan that was created a couple of years ago, but really identified steps that we need to take as a city to make it safer and easier to get around where we want to go, where we need to go, grocery stores, schools, and really doing that by providing more choice and more options for people driving, walking, biking, and taking transit. So really those targets of reaching a mode shift of 30% by 2030, reduction of 80% of emissions by 2050, and then zero traffic deaths on our streets by 2030. So providing more choices to our community, that's how we're able to manage our vehicle congestion in a better way. You can see us working by carving out space for our bikes, for our bus only lanes. I have a couple projects to highlight here where we've been working, and then also investing in our sidewalk network. So you heard Councilman Kashmann really championing that to make sure that we have a safe place for people to walk. In addition to these, we did just release some new regulation around what we call transportation demand management. I know that's a bunch of planning jargon, but really what it means is just providing strategies. Development provides strategies to really reduce travel demand on our streets. So these measures could look like investments such as bike lanes, connecting into the complete network, subsidizing transit passes for the residents and the employees that work in those buildings, but also can be in building amenities such as showers and lockers and things that just make it easier to bike to work and be able to transition into your work clothes a little bit easier. So those things are excited. I think we're really excited about our private development coming on board and helping us reach these goals. So this slide illustrates why it is so critical and important to providing more options and other than just traveling by a car. So you can see each picture, we're moving the same amount of people. But in this middle picture, you can see how much space is taken up when everyone is in a car, in their individual car. And the street is basically full, it's at capacity. But in the far left, you see how much space is freed up on the street when the same number of people are biking. And to the right, you can see how much space is freed up when the same amount of people are taking the bus. So just, illustrating the need for us to think and reimagine our right-of-way to provide more choice for our residents. One plan that we're very excited about is our Denver Moves Everyone. Some of you may have heard of this, and if you haven't, please sign up and allow us to engage with you. Your voice is critical in this plan. It is our strategic transportation plan for the future, so looking out into 2050. And at the bottom here, you see our modal plans. We do have Denver Moves Peds and Trails, Denver Moves Bikes, Denver Moves Transit. That was all part of the blueprint suite of plans. But this plan really brings that systematic approach and brings all the modal plans together to understand where we need to invest, how we need to invest, what policy needs to be behind us to really reach those overarching goals. The plan kicked off in early 21, and it is about a 2-year process. So we'll wrap up at the end of 22, but there is plenty of time to get involved. We've gone through goals. There's a lot of surveys and online engagement. So please go to denvermoveseveryone.com if you would like more information, or feel free to reach out as well directly to me. So why plan? Plans, they do take time, and I know we get anxious and we want to see action, right? But the plans are so critical to make sure we're strategic, we're thoughtful, and we're investing in the places that need it the most, and in ways that really make the change that we all desire. So here's just a couple examples. Denver Moves Peds and Trails identified a need to connect. This is in the far northwest area, but 52nd Avenue and Gray Street. Doing some improvements there, came directly out of plan. 14th bike lane, this has been existing for a little while. Hopefully some of you have ridden it, but in our core, again, came out of our bike plan. And then Broadway and 15th recently, new bus only lanes that have come online and were recommended in both the transit and Denver Moves downtown plan. So really critical for us to get this right. And again, please engage as we move forward. Several things happening in District 6. We have multimodal projects that you see here outlined in purple, really focused on the Colorado University light rail station. Several sidewalks coming online. I believe all of these are complete. We're just doing some punch work. So those are the projects highlighted in blue. A Vision Zero project along Quebec there, and several bike projects happening and connecting into Wash Park. Signals that you see in the light blue color along Evans here are moving forward. And then this is the study that Laura was referencing, but we work very closely with the community planning department to make sure our modal goals and overarching climate goals are incorporated too. So we're all partners here and work close together to make sure those visions are comprehensive and holistic. So my last slide here, the Denver Vision Zero Action Plan calls on us to reduce the speed limits on city streets. You heard Councilman Kashmann talk about, speed is a big contributing factor to serious bodily injuries and fatals on our streets. So we know we have a role to play in ensuring that our roads are safe and that we are reducing speed in ways that we can. And really, thanks to Councilman Kashmann's leadership and Mayor Hancock, we've just completed a speed limit reduction feasibility study that allows us to understand how we, might achieve this goal more comprehensively. And so strategies include reducing, changing signs out, as well as education and automated enforcement, driver feedback signage. So we're really excited about this. And it sounds like we'll have more information as well tomorrow from Councilman Kashmann. That is really the high level update that we had for you this evening, Glo. So I'm happy to answer any questions if we have time, or can always wait to the end as well.
Well, I will ask you one question, Jill, and just like Bob, it's my understanding people are having problems with the cameras tonight. So we are so appreciative that you are bearing with us. And thank you for your patience as well as your attendance, because the information that's being provided, technical glitches aside, the information is extremely valuable. But a question's coming in from Lisa. She says, if you are growing and building, how do you plan to meet the zero traffic fatality project?
Yes, great question. So certainly we are a growing city and it is a bold goal, but we know that one death on our street is too many. So really critical for us to ensure that we're doing everything that we can to reduce fatals on our streets. And so Denver Moves Everyone will also build a program of projects, but also education campaigns, other behavioral, making sure that we're wearing seatbelts. 70% of our fatals, individuals did not have a seatbelt on. So it's also educating our community around what that looks like. We have specific countermeasures, a lot of data behind us to understand where these are happening. And we know where we're making an investment, we're making a difference, which is great. And I'm realizing my camera is not on. So sorry about that. And so, I think if we know that these countermeasures are working, now it's just about how do we scale it across the department or across the city. And really make sure that we're doing everything that we can. And so we know it's a bold goal, but it's really the only goal that makes sense.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that, Jen. Yes, there are other questions, but what we will do right now, I'm going to turn it over to, I'm going to ask Mayor Hancock and Councilman Kashmann, as well as Chief Payson to join me on camera. This first question, I believe, will require all three of you to chime in. It says the DPD does a great job of arresting criminals. If the criminals are released on PR bonds and not held accountable, what good are the laws? Who is approving these PR bonds? Is it DA Beth McCann or the judges?
Let me just chime in first, and then Chief Payson and I have worked closely on this, and I can tell you have met several times about this issue. But I think that we would agree that this is a systemic challenge, one starting at the state legislature and coming through, of course, with the challenges with making sure there's good communication and expectations of the district attorney as well as the judges. And we're trying to address all of the areas where PR bonds are impacted and directives are given in terms of legislation, in terms of when PR bonds are being issued right now. I like to say this, we certainly believe there needs to be some balance with regards to bonds and people not being held when they shouldn't be held. I think we overcorrected, and now we need to come back to a balance. We're not going to go back to the original program, but we got to come back to a balance where we are holding people accountable and holding people who should be held in jail as opposed to being released. And we're going to work with the legislature. We're going to continue to work on a system with the district attorney and our judges to correct the challenges that have been presented with the recent laws that were enacted by the legislature. Chief Payson.
Mayor, thank you. I think the mayor says it better than anybody as far as the overcorrection. This is extremely frustrating. I asked for specific cases to be forwarded, and I just got one today. So we have an individual who was involved in a series of violent crimes, domestic violence being the first, who also was armed with a knife, felony menaced a couple of our officers. They de-escalated the situation. This individual assaulted the officers, and the individual was given a PR bond. So it's extremely frustrating to deal with this. The long and short of it is violent and repeat offenders need to be held accountable for us to be able to help keep our city safe. Now, just like the mayor said, we certainly can give people a hand up, give people an opportunity to address or meet the needs that they have. And that's what this city has done, and we've done that exceptionally well. So I'm going to kind of piggyback onto a second question with regards to services. Denver leads the way when we're talking about co-responders. We have 32 co-responders in the Denver Police Department. Denver leads the way with alternative response and the STAR program, something that the mayor and city council have fully supported. We also lead the way when it comes to case managers or outreach case coordinators. So that way, if somebody is in crisis, whether it's the co-responders or the star that helps that person, you have that safety net where the case managers then directly connect people to long-term services, whether it's mental health, substance abuse, or meeting their basic needs as food, housing, jobs. So we have created that. In fact, I was just on an interview from the White House yesterday from their policy team, because they were pointed to the direction of Denver of some of these reforms. So we can do both. We can do reform and we can help people with the needs that they have with that social safety net. But we also absolutely need to hold people accountable, just like the individual that I'm talking about now. This person needs to be properly addressed in order for us to keep this community safe.
Councilman Kashmann, do you want to add anything?
Well, just briefly echoes what's already been said. It's that balance of innocent till proven guilty, balancing with the fact that some folks, while they might not yet have been tried on a particular charge, have a record that shows if they're let out, they're just going to commit another crime. So it's that balance that we're all trying to strike. Okay,
so the average person, because I'm still getting follow-up emails and calls, or I should say messages, why did the individual get a PR bond if they are a habitual offender? What can citizens do to help stop this? If it's not the police and it's not our elected officials, what is it? How are they getting out? Is it the jails overcrowded? I mean, what can citizens do to help you all out, I guess is the question coming at me.
Mayor, if you don't mind,
go ahead.
So, again, this is a representative government, and people's voices need to be heard. If people are frustrated, as I can tell you, our officers are frustrated. I mean, think about that for a second, right? You're a police officer, you're doing your job, you de-escalate a situation, you're assaulted by somebody, and then this individual gets a PR bond. That is extremely frustrated. But we also know that our community is frustrated by this. We can point to some tragedies, a week ago where an individual, a 77-year-old, was killed by a person that was given a PR bond from another county. This is a real issue, and to address real issues, we have to come together with a collective voice and make sure that people know about these frustrations and they work to deal with it. We can strike that right balance. This is not about swinging that pendulum all the way one direction or the other. It's about making sure that we have smart reform that gets people the help that they need, while also holding people accountable so we can have a remarkably safe city.
Well said, Chief, and I'll just say that to remind everyone that come January, the legislature will be back in session. There will be efforts to get the legislature's attention to go back to this bill where these more lenient, where these laws entered into more lenient bonding. And again, no one is saying go back to an old system that unfairly and I think unnecessarily incarcerated a lot of people. What we're saying is there has to be a balance to where, as Councilman Kashmann pointed out, the background of these individuals, the habitual actors should be held accountable, and those issues should be taken into account when they come before any magistrate or judge at any given time. I mean, we have to consider their background and their propensity to commit crime.
Thank you so much for that. This one is coming in from Facebook as well. It's saying, what is the Denver City Council and Councilman Kashmann doing to aggressively reduce greenhouse gas emissions and ozone causing pollution? Specifically, given all of the development that is happening in Denver, can we explore phasing out gas and new construction to require all new buildings, commercial and residential, to be electric? Councilman Kashmann, I'll let you tackle that.
Yeah, thanks, Glo. It's a great question. What I would say is we have a city council that is very actively working to combat climate change in a variety of ways. In the recent rewrite of Blueprint Denver, I was able to get a statement in the first ever commitment to climate in one of our citywide plans. I'll just read the last couple of sentences. As we look to our future, we recognize reversing our contribution to climate change is critical. How we plan our city can help reduce our drain on resources and reduce Denver's carbon footprint. That commitment must be our overarching guide. In other words, as we look at zoning projects and development projects, how we address their effect on our environment is our overarching guide. Councilman Clark has been one of our leaders in environmental issues, worked with him and the administration in the creation of our Climate Action, Resiliency, and Sustainability Office that has a staff of a couple of dozen experts working on a variety of projects. I'm on the Sustainability Advisory Council, and it's just thrilling to watch the subcommittees working on everything from electrification to solar to food waste issues. I really could talk on and on, working on alternative mobility so we can get people out of the automobile that contributes so much to our greenhouse gases. The Energized Denver program that looks at existing buildings that generate 60% of our greenhouse gases. This really is a topic that I wish we had more time on.
Thank you, Councilman Kashmann. Appreciate that. Mayor Hancock, this one is for you. This is from Loyal Merrick. He says, I see that the city of Denver issued a 7-day emergency declaration in March of 2020. The governor rescinded the state emergency declaration on July 8th of 21. So where does the legal authority for the current mandates come from?
Well, as by charter, I have the charter to issue state of emergency based on a set of circumstances that exist to save life and to preserve life in the city and county of Denver. And obviously, we work with the city council to determine the length of that. And basically what it does is it allows us to waive certain requirements within Denver in terms of purchasing and procurement so that we can do the things necessary to preserve lives, protect people, and to make sure that our way of life in Denver is restored as quickly as possible back to normalcy. So it is granted by the state and by the city charter that grants us, the mayor, the authority upon the approval of city council, the state of emergency, and allows for us to act accordingly in terms of the procurement policies protecting the life and welfare of the city.
Because there seems to be confusion around that, Mayor Hancock. A lot of times people think that if the governor does it, then the city follows suit. But if the city does it first, they have to get permission from the governor, and that is not the case.
That's not the case. And in fact, the city can declare the state of emergency without the governor. But if the governor declares it in the same alignment, then necessarily, he's covering the entire state. But we can still do it within the penumens of that law. And that allows us to, again, waive the charter laws that are in the city and county of Denver, our home rule authority, that may not be within the state law in terms of purchasing power. For example, Denver has a law that does not allow for the mayor to spend anything over $500,000 without the approval of city council. Well, the state of emergency will waive those laws because we have to act quicker in order to save life and limb sometimes. And that's what the whole law is about.
Right. This next question is a Dottie question. So if
Jen?
I could get Jen on with me and the mayor. So it says, how can I request Dottie look at a safety concern I have for a specific street or intersection that I have? What is that process?
Yes, that's great. Community, our eyes on our street, and we really appreciate all of the recommendations that are coming. The best way is 311. We have a great system. We have area engineers that are specifically identified through the geographical areas that get these requests, or even if there's safety issues, right? We're seeing, hey, the stop sign is faded, or a tree limb has grown over an intersection. Those are really critical for us to know about. And we respond, we have goals internally of how quickly we need to close out those cases. So please, 311 is the best and most efficient way to get the information to us and get the issue resolved. Oh, yeah.
Hello, I said, since I have you on the screen, you wonderful woman, there's another question that deals with roundabouts. They're saying the safety of roundabouts and other places they've lived really have proven themselves to be very effective, and Denver only has 14 of them. I have seen more roundabouts though. I'm thinking it's great. You see them a lot in Europe, but what do you say to this individual saying, are we going to get more roundabouts? Because it definitely helps with who's got the right of way.
Yes, we see great benefit in roundabouts. Certainly, they require a lot less infrastructure. They do require more space most of the time, unless we're talking about a traffic circle that we can integrate into our built environment a little bit easier. But yes, we have a complete street design guidelines that just came out that give us a whole toolkit of traffic calming that we've never had before as a department. So this is really advancing our thinking. We're piloting many of these kind of components and elements within the street to understand, what's working, what's not, what do we need to tweak before we really scale it across the city. So things can be coming. Of course, we need funding. We need design behind us and understand where the right location is. But we are piloting, and we do have the tools in the toolbox. So that's the good news.
Thank you, Jen. I appreciate it. And Mayor Hancock, with that, I'm going to turn it back over to you to wrap us up for tonight. And thanks to you as well as the councilman for this honor.
Absolutely, Glo. Thank you very much for, again, your excellent moderation of this town hall meeting. To Councilman Kashmann, thank you so very much for your leadership and for your participation tonight and your hospitality in District 6. To the residents of District 6, we thank you very much for being with us virtually, as this being our last cabinet community for 2021. I want to just say thank you to Glo, obviously to Bob McDonald, Laura Aldrete of the Community Planning and Development, Jen Hillhouse, who represented Department of Transportation and Infrastructure, Chief Pays and Commander Kyle, and behind the scenes, you don't see her, but she's our illustrious director, Katie Stracina, and the entire cabinet community team that worked so hard to pull this off. If you knew the cadre of people, the army of people behind the scenes, you will be blown away that helped to make this hour and 15 minutes possible with District 6 and all the other districts throughout the city of Denver. We want to thank you for joining us. We'll be back in 2022 with some form of cabinet community. We're in discussions what that might look like, but please continue to stay involved. We need to continue to hear from you. 311's available at denvergov.org. Of course, Councilman Kashmann, and our goal is to make sure that government is open and willing to hear and respond to the needs and desires of the citizens. You all have a great evening. Enjoy your night, and we'll catch you next time. Good night, everyone.